Well, good morning, everybody. It's Pa from Pa's the Name. A little quick, brief history on my name of my channel. When my older four kids were young, we didn't have TV by choice, but we did have a TV that we watched movies on movie night. And being in a rather small town in a very rural area, we didn't have a whole lot of choices on what we watched, and have a video store close by, and we could order movies from Netflix to come in the mail. But we would go to the library next town up and rent movies from them. And we rented the series of Ma and Pa Kettle films, and just greatly enjoyed them. And my kids always just got to call me Pa, because Pa would always tip his hat and say, "Pa is a name." So they started calling me Pa is a name, or Chief, because I was a fire chief for 8 years, and something like that, six to 8 years. So they either called me Pa as a name, or Pa, or Chief. So I thought it was kind of cute to come up with Pa as a name. So henceforth, the name of my channel. I know I go on live streams and go in their live chat, and some people call it PA, which I guess it does kind of look like PA for Pennsylvania, but not so much. From southern Minnesota, y'all. Oof to y'all. So I'm going to go over a little bit about Lyme disease on this video, and some of its history, some of its conspiracies. Lyme disease is caused by a spirochete called Bartonella burgdorferi. It's been found as far back as a 5,300-year-old mummy. It was found to have the spirochete in it. So it's been around forever and a day, but the conspiracy of it is it's thought that our federal government has perfected it on Plum Island for germ warfare, and because they were introducing it into insects. However, the insects would have gotten off the island or gotten out of the laboratory, as anybody's guess. But because it is spread by birds, I'm sure that it's not much of a stretch to feel that an island a mile or so off of the coast, birds could fly back and forth between. So it was first discovered in Lyme, Connecticut. That's where it got its name. A bunch of the town residents became very sick, and after looking into it, this Willie Burgdorferi, the scientist who kind of discovered it and gave it its name, it became known as Lyme disease. It is spread by deer ticks. That's what it's commonly known as in anything west of the East Coast. But it's also spread by other animals, like mice and deer. This is a lousy. I don't know how to change the contrast of this. I'm sorry, other than to be able to just highlight and show you guys what it is. This is from the Bay Area Lyme Foundation. They do a good job of kind of the history of Lyme disease, the myths of Lyme disease. This shows that some of the history of it back in the 60s and the 70s, how it was found out, all the way up to the 80s and the 2000s. The CDC estimates that there's over 300,000 new cases of Lyme disease every year. That's an estimate, because a lot of those cases go unreported because the symptoms can be as common as a common flu and just feeling achy, and people, especially in younger people, are like, "Oh, well, I'm just not feeling good, pop a Tylenol or an ibuprofen and keep going." Whereas if they, would have found that rash, the bullseye rash that is fairly common in the Lyme disease cases, and gotten into the doctor. But gosh, even when I was a kid, ticks, they were a part of growing up on the farm. They it was almost a badge of honor to see when you're out fixing fence or looking for cattle to see how many ticks you got. When you got in for lunch or whatever. Who had the most ticks? It was kind of a race between us boys. There's a lot of myths behind the Lyme disease. Not everyone gets the bullseye rash. I know, in fact, that my sister, who was bitten by a tick, got a different strain of Lyme, a newer one that the university was rather interested in. She didn't have a rash, but it is fairly common. 70% of the people develop a skin rash. For example, in 2010 study showed in the state of Maine, only 43% of the Lyme patients exhibited this particular type of rash. Another myth is that there's no Lyme in California. Well, that's not true. It's been reported in every state except Hawaii. So it is getting around. It's becoming much more prevalent now. I'm sure it's due to our nomadic behavior of the humans. Another myth is antibiotics cure everyone. Statistics show that as many as 20% of the patients continue to exhibit symptoms even after antibiotic treatment, and that's where I fall in. I was originally diagnosed in the early 90s with Lyme disease, and my doctor figures that I never got rid of it from that. I just didn't know enough throughout the rest of my life to realize it was Lyme disease causing all these weird symptoms in me. Myth: if the test is negative, you don't have Lyme. That's not so fast. Current gold standard diagnosis for Lyme disease is a 2-tiered blood test requiring a positive ELISA result, and the ELISA result measures the infection fighting or memory antibodies against the Borrelia burgdorferi, and it misses up to 60% of the acute cases of Lyme when the antibodies may not be high enough to be detected. The other test that they don't talk about here is the Western blot, and that's the second of the 2 tiers. I don't know why they didn't put it in here, but the Western blot, by the CDC's own admission, is only 30 to 50% accurate. So if you don't test positive, they're quick to say, well, you don't have Lyme disease, and that's just a very misleading statistic or fact, because if it's only 30 to 50% accurate and the test is negative and they refuse to give you antibiotics, I mean, even a 7 to 10 day dose of doxycycline could help that patient, if they tested negative but they still have it. So that's why the results are so high at the 300,000 new cases every year, is because they're going on defunct tests. That's where the whole conspiracy, that's for another video. The CDC and the ISDA all got sold a bill of goods, basically. So one of the biggest things that goes unnoticed is in the Lyme disease world is the co-infections that come up. I'll tell you what, that's what makes probably the most people sick. But what happens in the 3 stages of Lyme disease, the first stage, you get bitten, you get it, and the Lyme, it's a spirochete, just like in syphilis, and it's a corkscrew shaped body, and it just drills its way through your body. I mean, it's so small, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets into your nerves, it gets into your teeth, it just gets all over. So it's just corkscrewing around the body, attacking everything it can. And at this point, the body says, "Oh crap, we're being attacked," so it sends the antibodies to go take care of it. Well, once the Lyme realizes that it's getting attacked, it morphs into its second stage, and it creates a biofilm around itself, and it's like a cloaking mechanism. And once it gets cloaked, those that aren't killed by the antibodies that the body produces, those that get cloaked, hide. The body says, "Oh, we got no more. We're done." And they stop fighting. Well, underneath that cloaking mechanism, then these other the anaplasmosis, the Babesia, Bartonella, Borrelia. That's I don't know why they have that listed twice, but all these other Borrelias, Colorado tick fever, ehrlichiosis, Powassan disease, rickettsia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, southern tick associated rash, tick paralysis, tick-borne relapsing fever, tularemia. They all can come in underneath the cloaking mechanism of the original Lyme. And these other diseases that you can get just wreak havoc on the body, and without an $1,800 test that goes to a specific lab that tests for all of these different diseases, you don't know what you're fighting against. So I didn't have the money to do the test, so my doctor just started treating me like I had the Babesia and the Bartonella, and we would see how my body reacted. Well, it reacted the best when we were treating the Babesia, the Bartonella, and the Lyme. And unfortunately, the insurance companies don't appreciate that shotgun method of trying to treat, so they won't let you treat that without these positive tests. And even once you have the positive test, then they'll go back with, "Well, you treated with antibiotics, so you're done now." So it's really a catch-22 trying to get this stuff. There's a lot of out of pocket with these things. But back to the 3 stages of Lyme disease. After it morphs in and gets its cloaking mechanism, once it feels safe, and the powers that be kind of feel like it's like shingles, a stressful situation or another illness will make the Lyme feel safe, and it comes out. It morphs back into a cyst until it feels safe, and then it hatches again. It comes back out as a spirochete and starts wreaking havoc. But like I said earlier, that's just the history of the Lyme disease. Underneath the cloaking mechanism, you get all these other illnesses that come out and just tear hell into the body. Keep them going. The cause of Lyme disease, sorry, Borrelia burgdorferi, of course, that's the original. And be caused by the blackleg tick, which is most common on the West Coast, the East Coast, and the Midwest, which is where I am. The East Coast has their own special. I saw it earlier, but now I can't find it. But the host animals, basically your mice and squirrels, rodents, the low living animals, carry it. The white-tailed deer, which it's basically named after, can carry the tick, but it doesn't necessarily carry the disease. So it gives it its meals. It lives on that, but the Lyme disease is actually spread by the small animals, the rodents and squirrels and birds, the things that feed in the bottom of the forest floor, where the tick basically is from. You can, if anybody's interested, they can go back to this Bay Area um, uh, Lyme website, and I'll try to pin it in the bottom of this video. This is my first working with OBS, so if this is all screwed up, I am so very sorry. I didn't know a whole lot about what I'm doing. This gives a picture of the cycle of Lyme disease. Brings up another conspiracy theory of how pets are treated versus humans. Your pets are, they test positive. They have a test for Lyme disease. That's just a simple blood draw. They put it in it's like a pregnancy test. They put some of the drop of blood in one end of the test. They count to 30 or whatever, and it shows positive or negative. And something about how bright the positive sign is how many titers or how many spirochetes they're finding in the blood. And like my older dog, my older husky, Shyla, she tested positive for it, and we just know every time she starts acting like her joints are stiff and she isn't moving good, well, we go to the vet, we get more antibiotics for her and treat her and knock it back into submission, and she's good again for a while. But they won't allow that for humans. They won't allow that same blood test for humans for, I'm sure, a million different reasons up in the insurance and the drug companies and all these places. But yeah, it's sick on how they'll treat humans different than they'll treat your pets, and it's just not right most of the times. But it'll be in dogs, it'll be in cats, it'll be in all of those different pets, and the humans, we just have to kind of put up or shut up and try treating with herbal things. So basically, that's a brief history of Lyme disease and the effects that it has on people, what I'm going through with it, and what I'm sure millions of Americans and people across the world are going through. And I'll do another video sometime on some of the treatments that people do with limited success, and some with great success. But I think it kind of depends on how long you've been fighting this, how deep into the body this is, how long you're going to have to put up with it, those kind of things. But that'll be a whole nother video, along with a whole nother video on the conspiracy theories and the germ warfare and all of these things. So like, share, and subscribe if you like this, if you find it interesting. I wasn't completely planning on pigeonholing myself into just the Lyme disease. There's so many other diseases out there that are not really viewed high in the medical industry's standards, but people are yet still sick, that I'd like to do some more research on and do some videos about. So yeah, if you like this, leave me some comments and give me some ideas for some other things, what anybody else would like to hear talked about, or your own stories on Lyme disease, or if you think you have Lyme disease. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people in this country that have Lyme disease that don't know they have Lyme disease, and their doctors won't tell them that they have Lyme disease. So it's kind of like prepping for shit hit the fan situation. There's so many people that want to bury their head and not think that something could happen and do something about it. It's the same thing with Lyme. The doctors just want you to bury your head in the sand and go away. Quit bothering me, boy. So it's Pa's the name. Doing a little history on Lyme disease. God's blessing on everybody that's watching this, and may peace and serenity find you with His blessing. So love you all. Thank you much.